You know that moment when you reach for a snack, and deep down, you know it's not your stomach that's talking.
Hmm.
Maybe it's stress, maybe a little boredom creeping in, or
Mm.
even celebrating a win with something tasty.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a really common human experience, this urge to eat for reasons beyond just actual hunger.
It really is.
And those cravings, what we
Mm.
often call emotional eating, well, they can really make it tough to manage our weight and just feel good overall.
Absolutely. Those urges are powerful and they're incredibly widespread. Understanding why they happen and, figuring out how to navigate them is a fundamental part of developing a healthier relationship with food.
And that's precisely what we're going to explore today. We've got a really interesting collection of information to dive into everything from a detailed look at healthy eating principles for weight control
Hmm.
to an exploration of the fascinating worlds of hormones and how they influence our weight, and even some practical insights from the Mayo Clinic's renowned weight loss program.
So, we're looking at this from several key angles: the science of nutrition, the physiological processes within our bodies, and, yeah, some proven real world strategies that people can actually use.
Our goal in this deep dive is to really pull out the most valuable insights for you. We want to extract those key principles and give you actionable strategies from these sources so you can gain knowledge quickly and feel empowered, in control rather than overwhelmed when it comes to your eating habits and managing your weight.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. Our first source, looking at healthy eating for weight control, points to guidelines from the World Health Organization. Back in 2018, they highlighted that a healthy diet for managing weight is all about a balance of different foods. It emphasizes really loading up on things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fiber-rich foods, beans, and pulses.
Which makes perfect sense when we think about a nutrient-dense approach. It's about getting the most nutritional bang for your caloric bucklots of vitamins, minerals, and fiber without a lot of empty calories.
Exactly. And on the other side of the coin, they recommend really keeping an eye on things like free sugars, those the sugars added to processed foods and sugary drinks, as well as those tempting snacks, processed meats, and salt.
Right.
They also stress the importance of swapping out those saturated and industrially produced trans fats for healthier unsaturated fats. Think olive oil instead of butter, for example.
Yeah, that shift in fat intake is so important, not just for weight management, but also for our cardiovascular health. Unsaturated fats play essential roles in cell function and helping our bodies absorb nutrients.
And it's not just about what we're cutting back on or adding in. It's also about making sure we're getting all the essential building blocks, those macronutrients like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins,
Hmm.
as well as the tiny but mighty micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals. Plus, the WHO guidelines remind us that we need to fuel our bodies with the right amount of energy based on our individual needs, taking into account things like our current nutritional status, our body's natural processes, and how active we are.
Because everyone's energy needs are a little different. A healthy diet isn't a one-size-fits-all prescription. It really needs to be tailored to the individual.
For sure. And what are the payoffs for eating this way? Well, the sources highlight that it makes managing our weight much more straightforward. Whether our goal is to lose, gain, or maintain,
Right.
it's also a really powerful tool in preventing chronic diseases and can even have a positive impact on our mood and energy levels.
Which makes sense when you consider that a body fueled with the right nutrients is going to function more efficiently and be better equipped to handle the stresses of daily life.
So let's dig a little deeper into those core principles of healthy eating for weight control.
Mm.
Our sources really emphasize the idea of nutrient adequacy and balance. When we talk about carbohydrates, the recommendation is to aim for around 45 to 65% of our daily energy coming from them. Remember, each gram of carbohydrate provides about 4 calories. The big focus here is on choosing those complex carbohydrates. Think whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, and whole wheat bread, and really minimizing those free sugars. Ideally, we should keep them to less than 10% of our total energy intake, and even better if we can get that down closer to 5%.
Right. Whole grains are fantastic because they provide sustained energy release and are packed with fiber, which is so good for our digestion and helps us feel full for longer. And as we touched on, limiting those free sugars is key for keeping our blood sugar stable and preventing excess calorie consumption.
Then we have fats, which should make up about 20 to 35% of our daily energy. Each gram of fat packs about 9 calories, so a bit more energy dense there.
Hmm.
The crucial point here is to really focus on those unsaturated fats, things like avocados, nuts, and olive oil, while limiting saturated fats, the kind often found in animal products and many processed foods. to less than 10% of our total energy.
Exactly. Think liquid fats versus solid fats at room temperature, generally speaking. And choosing unsaturated fats over saturated and trans fats has significant benefits for our heart health.
And what about protein? That should be around 10 to 35% of our daily energy, with each gram providing 4 calories, same as carbs. The sources encourage us to include lean sources like poultry and fish at least 3 times a week, along with shellfish and those wonderful plant-based options like beans and lentils.
Protein is essential for building and repairing tissues in our bodies, and it also plays a really important role in helping us feel satisfied after eating. Helps with that satiety signal.
Totally. Now, we can't forget about the unsung heroes, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. The sources stress the importance of getting these from a wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, at least 400 grams every single day.
Wow, 400 grams.
Yeah. Not only do they provide those vital micronutrients that our bodies need to function properly, but they're also generally low in calories and packed with fiber, making them a real win-win for overall health and weight management.
And the amazing thing is that the different colors in fruits and vegetables often indicate different types of beneficial phytonutrients, which have powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties in the body. So, eat the rainbow, right?
Eat the rainbow, exactly. Okay, let's talk about salt. The recommendation is to keep our daily intake to less than 5 grams. That's only about 1 teaspoon. And ideally, to use iodized salt.
Just 1 teaspoon. That's not a lot when you think about hidden salt in foods.
It really isn't. They even offer some really practical tips for cutting back, like being mindful of salty processed foods and condiments, not keeping the salt shaker on the table, and actively choosing lower sodium options when we're shopping.
Reducing our sodium intake is really important for maintaining healthy blood pressure levels.
Here's where things get really practical. The sources introduce this concept called the healthy eating plate. Imagine your plate visually divided. About half of it should be filled with a colorful variety of non-starchy vegetables and fruits. About a quarter should be a source of healthy protein, and the remaining quarter should be those beneficial whole grains. It's a great visual cue for building balanced meals.
That visual guide is a fantastic and simple way to ensure we're getting a good balance of food groups and appropriate portion sizes at each meal. Very intuitive.
And to get even more specific about portion control, the sources discuss using eating units. This is essentially a system for estimating food portions and tailoring our meals to our individual energy needs. They even provide some example calorie levels like 1,200, 1,400, 1,800, all the way up to 2,500 kilocalories.
So a bit more technical.
Yeah, a bit more detailed. And within those levels, they suggest a general macronutrient breakdown of around 30% protein, 25% fat, and 45% carbohydrates. It's a more, structured way to manage your intake if you like that level of detail.
These percentages offer a helpful starting point, but it's important to remember that individual needs can vary quite a bit depending on factors like activity level, age, and overall health. Not set in stone.
Right, definitely adaptable. They give really specific examples of what constitutes one eating unit for different food groups. For grains and starchy vegetables, 1 unit is about half a bowl of cooked rice. For fruits, it might be half an apple, around 200 grams. For non-starchy veggies, a whole cucumber, about 180 grams, could be 1 unit.
Okay, getting quite specific then.
Very specific. For lean meat like beef, it's around 35 grams. For low-fat milk or unsweetened soy milk, it's about 200 milliliters. They even cover things like nuts and olive oil. And they provide examples of how to convert common foods, like 80 grams of cooked vermicelli being 1 unit, while only 60 grams of pho noodles is half a unit.
Wow. That level of detail can be incredibly useful for individuals who are actively trying to manage their weight or have specific dietary requirements they need to adhere to. Needs a bit of tracking, though.
It does. But if counting units feels a little too intricate, they also offer a much simpler alternative, the hand rule.
Oh, I like the sound of this one.
Yeah, me too. Think of your palm as a guide for protein portions, your fist for carbohydrates or fruit, 2 cupped palms for your vegetables, and your thumb for fats. It's a really visual and portable way to think about portion sizes without getting bogged down in numbers.
The hand rule is a fantastic practical tool, especially when you're eating out or don't have measuring tools readily available. Super easy to remember.
Definitely. Now, when it comes to how often we eat, the sources suggest aiming for around 4 to 5 smaller meals spread throughout the day.
Okay, interesting.
The idea behind this is to help keep hunger at bay, help us feel fuller for longer after eating, and it might even have a slight positive effect on our metabolism. They emphasize the importance of eating before we reach that point of intense hunger
Right. Avoid getting ravenous.
and stopping before we feel overly full and uncomfortable. They even offer some example meal timings like 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. as a general guideline.
Eating more consistently throughout the day can definitely help stabilize blood sugar levels and prevent those big energy dips and subsequent cravings. Makes sense.
And finally, this section wraps up with some really fundamental lifestyle tips for making healthy eating a sustainable habit. Prioritizing cooking at home, actively making those healthier food choices, taking the time to actually read and understand food labels.
So important, the label.
Practicing mindful eating by paying attention to our food and chewing it thoroughly, making sure we're drinking enough water, and taking a little time to plan our meals in advance. These all sound like really solid, actionable steps that anyone can start incorporating.
Absolutely. These are the foundational habits that really support long-term healthy eating and weight management. It's the stuff that sticks.
Okay, so we've got a good understanding of the what and the how of healthy eating for weight control. But what happens when things get a bit more challenging, like with the frustrating yo-yo effect?
Ah, yes, the yo-yo.
Our next source delves into that and the really crucial role of keeping our blood sugar levels balanced.
The yo-yo effect, that cycle of losing weight and then gaining it back, is something that so many people experience, and it can be incredibly discouraging.
Absolutely. The source explains it as our body's response after we stop following a restrictive diet, and it points to a few key factors that drive this cycle. An imbalance in our energy intake and expenditure, those often tricky hormonal changes we'll talk about more in a bit, and even our psychological state and how we relate to food.
It's a really complex interplay of different mechanisms within the body. When we drastically cut calories or carbohydrates, it triggers a cascade of responses.
Exactly. They describe this cycle where severely restricting calories or carbohydrates leads to lower blood sugar levels and, unfortunately, the breakdown of our muscle tissue for energy.
Not what you want.
No. This, in turn, triggers intense feelings of hunger and powerful cravings, often for exactly the types of high-carb and sugary foods we were trying to avoid. Giving into those cravings then leads to overeating and, ultimately, to weight and fat regain. It's a tough cycle to break.
Yeah, the body perceives that severe calorie restriction as a signal of potential starvation, so it tries to conserve energy by slowing down our metabolism and even breaking down muscle to fuel itself. It's fighting back, essentially.
And here's a really important point. The source emphasizes that maintaining stable blood sugar levels is absolutely crucial if we want to burn fat effectively, protect our lean muscle mass, reduce those persistent cravings, and just have more consistent energy throughout the day.
Makes sense.
They even provide a really helpful visual contrast between graphs showing stable blood sugar and unstable blood sugar. We see how too many sugary or high-carb meals lead to rapid spikes and dips, encouraging fat storage, while skipping meals can actually signal our bodies to burn muscle for fuel and hang on to fat reserves.
Right. Stable blood sugar allows the body to consistently tap into its fat stores for energy without triggering those dramatic hunger pangs and cravings that can derail our efforts, keeping things steady.
So the key takeaway to avoid that yo-yo effect, focus on keeping your blood sugar on an even keel. Now this leads us perfectly into our next topic. The fascinating and incredibly important role that hormones play in our weight control. I mean, they're like the body's intricate communication network, constantly sending signals that affect everything we do, right?
That's a great way to put it. Hormones are indeed chemical messengers produced by specialized cells in our endocrine glands. They travel through our bloodstream and act on specific target cells and organs to regulate a vast array of bodily functions.
And there's quite a team of these key endocrine players. We've got the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland in the brain, the thyroid and parathyroid glands in the neck, the ovaries or testes, the pancreas and the adrenal glands. It's a whole interconnected system.
Definitely. Each of these glands releases specific hormones that have far-reaching effects on different systems throughout the body. It's like an orchestra.
Yeah, an orchestra. In general, these hormones are involved in pretty much everything. Our growth and development, how we process energy through metabolism, our reproductive functions, how we adapt to changes in our environment, even our mood and cognitive function, and crucially, maintaining that internal balance we call homeostasis.
It's a really delicate and interconnected system, and when it comes to weight control, there are several key hormones that play particularly influential roles.
Right. Our source really focuses in on those hormones related to hunger and satiety, that feeling of fullness, and also how our bodies tend to store fat in different areas. Let's start with thyroid hormones. Apparently, if we have an overactive thyroid, a condition called hyperthyroidism,
Mm-hmm.
it can really crank up our metabolism and often lead to unintentional weight loss. But on the flip side, if we have an underactive thyroid or hypothyroidism, it can slow things down and contribute to weight gain.
Thyroid hormones are absolutely central to regulating our basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of energy our body burns at rest just to keep functioning, like the body's thermostat.
Good analogy. Then there's insulin, that hormone produced by the pancreas. It's often described as a fat-storing hormone because one of its main jobs is to help move glucose from our bloodstream into our cells for energy, and any excess glucose can be converted and stored as fat. Insulin also plays a role in inhibiting the breakdown of stored fat.
Insulin is absolutely crucial for regulating our blood sugar levels, but yeah, it also has significant effects on how our bodies store and utilize fat. Very powerful.
Next up is cortisol, a hormone produced by the adrenal glands, and we often hear about it in the context of
The
stress.
stress hormone, yeah.
The source points out that when we experience chronic high levels of cortisol, it can actually lead to an increase in that stubborn abdominal fat, as well as increased cravings for those high-fat and sugary comfort foods we sometimes reach for when we're stressed.
Cortisol is our primary stress hormone, and while it has essential functions, when it's chronically elevated, it can unfortunately have some negative metabolic consequences, including promoting fat storage, especially, around the belly.
And what about estrogen? This is primarily produced by the ovaries in women, but also in smaller amounts by the adrenal glands in women and the testes in men, as well as fat tissue itself. It's not just about reproductive health, it's also really important for our metabolism and overall well-being.
Right.
Imbalances in estrogen levels, whether they're too high or too low, can actually contribute to weight gain. And interestingly, lower levels of estrogen, like during menopause or in older men, can sometimes lead to increased fat storage, specifically around the abdomen.
Estrogen plays a really complex role in energy balance and how our bodies distribute fat. It interacts with a lot of other systems.
Then there's testosterone, which is primarily produced by the testes in men and the adrenal glands in both men and women. Gets a mention for its role in helping us burn fat, build lean muscle mass, and boost our overall energy levels.
Testosterone has anabolic effects, meaning it helps build tissue, including muscle, and it also influences how our bodies metabolize fat. Important for both sexes, though levels differ.
And the source also briefly touches on other key players like ghrelin.
The hunger hormone.
Right, signals our brain that it's time to eat. Leptin.
The satiety hormone.
Fullness.
Exactly, telling our brain when we've had enough. And incretins, which are hormones released by our gut in response to food and play a role in blood sugar control and can also influence how full we feel. It's a whole hormonal orchestra working together.
It really is. These hormones are constantly communicating signals between our gut, our brain, and other organs to regulate our appetite and overall energy balance. Fascinating stuff.
This is interesting, too. The source even touches on how different body shapes the classic apple shape with more fat around the waist versus the pear shape with more fat around the hips and thighs can sometimes have hormonal associations.
Ah, the apple versus pear.
Yeah. Apple shapes are often linked to higher levels of insulin and cortisol, while pear shapes can be more associated with estrogen and insulin.
It's more of a tendency than a hard rule, though, right?
Exactly. It's not a strict classification, but it does give us some insight into how different hormonal profiles might influence where we tend to store fat.
Yeah.
It's complex.
And it sounds like it can be a bit of a self-perpetuating cycle. The source explains how obesity itself can actually lead to hormone imbalances. For instance, it can mildly reduce our ghrelin response after we eat, which might seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, you'd think less hunger hormone would be good.
But it also leads to something called leptin resistance. Apparently, a protein in our blood called CRP can bind to leptin, essentially blocking it from signaling fullness to our brain. So we end up feeling hungrier even when our bodies have sufficient energy stores.
Right, the I'm full signal isn't getting through properly.
And obesity can also contribute to insulin resistance, where our cells become less responsive to the signals from insulin.
And the tricky thing is that this insulin resistance can actually hinder leptin's ability to signal fullness to the brain as well, further disrupting our appetite regulation. It's a complex feedback loop, or rather a downward spiral sometimes.
Wow. So if our lifestyle habits can really throw these delicate hormones out of whack, what are some of the big culprits? The source highlights a lack of sleep as a major disruptor.
Oh yeah, sleep is huge.
It can decrease our levels of leptin, increase ghrelin and cortisol, and even reduce our sensitivity to insulin. They even provide some numbers: a potential 16% decrease in leptin, a 15% increase in ghrelin, a significant 40% increase in cortisol, and a 16% reduction in insulin sensitivity.
Those are pretty significant shifts after even a single night of poor sleep or just consistently not getting enough. Those hormonal changes can have a really noticeable impact on our appetite, our cravings, and how our bodies process energy the next day.
Prolonged stress is another big one, leading to chronically elevated levels of cortisol. As we heard earlier, this can contribute to insulin resistance, higher blood sugar levels, increased cravings for those high-fat and sugary foods, and ultimately increased fat storage, particularly around the abdomen.
Right.
It can even make us crave those highly palatable substances, fat, sugar, salt, by activating the reward centers in our brains.
Yeah, when we're under chronic stress, our bodies stay in that fight or flight mode, which has significant and often negative metabolic consequences over the long term.
And perhaps not surprisingly, a diet that's high in sugar can also really mess with our hormones, leading to increased insulin production and, you guessed it, more fat storage over time.
The rapid spikes and subsequent crashes in blood sugar that come from a high-sugar diet can definitely contribute to insulin resistance in the long run. Puts a strain on the system.
Okay, so we know some of the things that can disrupt this hormonal balance. What are some steps we can take to help restore it? The source offers some really practical advice. They suggest aiming to eat smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day, roughly every 3 to 4 hours.
Like we touched on earlier, eating more consistently can help stabilize our blood sugar levels and prevent those extreme hunger signals from kicking in.
They also recommend making sure we include a good source of protein in all of our meals and snacks, things like eggs, fish, chicken, and nuts. And specifically, they suggest trying to eat a protein-rich breakfast within about an hour of waking up.
Protein, especially at breakfast, has been shown to help regulate appetite hormones and potentially reduce overall calorie intake throughout the day. Sets you up well.
They also advise aiming to eat our dinner at least 3 hours before we go to bed.
This can give our bodies more time to digest our food before we become less active during sleep. Helps avoid things like reflux, too, sometimes.
Good point. Getting that all-important 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night is another key recommendation, as is engaging in regular physical activity. And of course, making a conscious effort to avoid those sugary foods and drinks is crucial.
These lifestyle factors, sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress management, they have a really direct and significant impact on our hormone levels and how sensitive our bodies are to those hormonal signals. They all work together.
Managing stress is also on the list, which makes perfect sense given the link between stress and cortisol we just discussed.
Crucial.
And even cultivating a positive mindset gets a mention, likely because our mental and emotional states can influence our stress levels. They even suggest some specific foods that might help support hormone balance, like fatty fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids, avocados, nuts, green tea, milk thistle, and beans.
Yeah, these foods contain various nutrients and compounds, healthy fats, fiber, antioxidants that can contribute to overall hormonal health and well-being as part of a balanced diet.
Now let's try to bring all of these pieces together and look at a more structured approach. Our final source is all about the Mayo Clinic Diet, a weight loss program for life.
The Mayo Clinic. Well-respected name.
Definitely. It's described as a comprehensive lifestyle approach developed by experts at the Mayo Clinic to help us achieve and maintain a healthy weight over the long term. It's not about quick fixes, but about sustainable changes.
That's right. It's really focused on adopting healthy habits that you can maintain for the rest of your life. Sustainability is key.
Exactly. It emphasizes adopting new healthy habits and breaking those less helpful old ones, making simple, enjoyable changes that we can actually stick with. The reason to consider it? Well, it was developed by medical professionals. It's designed to be adaptable to our individual food preferences and dietary needs.
That's good. Adaptable.
It strongly encourages eating unlimited amounts of non-starchy vegetables and fruits, and it offers expert-backed strategies for making lasting changes to our habits. Plus, the goal is to improve our overall health and reduce our risk of various health issues, and it doesn't involve completely eliminating entire food groups or obsessively counting every single calorie.
So, less restrictive, more about building positive habits.
Exactly. And most importantly, it's designed to be a program we can actually stick with and integrate into our daily lives long term.
The focus on the science of behavior change is a really key element here, helping individuals find their own intrinsic motivation and develop strategies for managing setbacks along the way. It's not just what to eat, but how to make it happen.
So how does the Mayo Clinic diet actually work? It's based on research and clinical experience and really centers around eating delicious, healthy foods and increasing our levels of physical activity. The core principle is that the most effective way to keep weight off for good is to make lasting shifts in our lifestyle and embrace new habits that we actually enjoy.
Makes sense. If you don't enjoy it, you won't stick with it.
Precisely. And they emphasize that the program can be tailored to our individual needs, our personal health history, and our preferred style of eating.
That element of personalization is so important for long-term success with any healthy eating plan.
The Mayo Clinic diet is structured into two main phases. The first is called Lose It, and it's designed as a 2-week jumpstart to help us experience some initial weight loss, typically around 6 to 10 pounds, in a safe and healthy way.
Okay, a kickstart phase.
Yeah. During this phase, the focus is really on establishing those key lifestyle habits that are strongly linked to weight management. We learn to incorporate 5 new healthy habits, break 5 unhealthy ones that might be holding us back, and adopt an additional 5 bonus healthy habits. This initial phase is intended to provide some quick, motivating results and help us start practicing those fundamental habits that will carry into the next phase.
The Lose It phase provides a clear structure and can be really effective in building initial momentum and demonstrating that change is possible. Gets the ball rolling.
Then comes the Live It phase, and this is really meant to be a lifelong approach to health and well-being.
A long game.
Exactly. In this phase, we delve deeper into making informed food choices, understanding appropriate portion sizes, planning our meals effectively, incorporating regular physical activity and exercise into our routines, and really solidifying those healthy habits we started building in the first phase. The expectation is a more gradual and sustainable rate of weight loss, around 1 to 2 pounds per week, until we reach our goal weight.
That's a healthy rate.
And then the focus shifts to maintaining that weight permanently.
The Live It phase is all about making these healthy changes a natural and sustainable part of your daily life, integrating it, not just doing it temporarily.
A really central tool in the Mayo Clinic diet is their healthy weight pyramid. It's a visual guide that illustrates how we should be prioritizing our food choices. The base of the pyramid is all about those wonderful vegetables and fruits, encouraging us to eat more of these.
Right at the bottom, the foundation.
Yep. As we move up the pyramid, the portions and frequency of consumption gradually decrease, with the very top being fats and sweets, which we should consume in the smallest amounts. It really emphasizes eating virtually unlimited non-starchy vegetables and fruits because of their incredible benefits for both our weight and our overall health.
So load up on the good stuff at the bottom.
That's the message. The main message is pretty straightforward. Focus on the foods at the bottom of the pyramid most of the time, eat less of the foods at the top, and remember to move your body.
The pyramid offers a really clear and easy-to-understand visual framework for making healthier food choices throughout the day. Simple, but effective.
And speaking of moving our bodies, the Mayo Clinic diet provides really practical and realistic ideas for incorporating more physical activity and exercise into our daily lives. They recommend aiming for at least 30 minutes of physical activity on most days of the week.
The standard recommendation, good baseline.
With the understanding that more activity can lead to even greater health benefits and weight loss. They even offer examples of exercise plans that include easy-to-follow walking routines and resistance exercises designed to help maximize fat loss and boost our mood. Plus, they really encourage us to find small ways to move more throughout the day, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator whenever possible.
Integrating regular physical activity is absolutely crucial, not only for weight management, but also for our overall physical and mental health. It works synergistically with healthy eating. You can't really out-exercise a bad diet, but exercise amplifies the benefits.
Good point. They also offer a variety of flexible eating styles within the program, including vegetarian and even Mediterranean-inspired options at different calorie levels to suit individual needs. They provide plenty of recipes and meal ideas to help us feel satisfied and not deprived.
Keeps things interesting.
Yeah. They even give an example of a typical 1,200-calorie Mediterranean plan, featuring delicious options like overnight oats with berries, hearty white bean soup, flavorful roast chicken with bell peppers, a banana for a snack, and a small daily allowance for a treat.
Offering these different eating styles makes the program much more accessible and adaptable to a wider range of individual preferences and dietary needs. That flexibility is key.
So what kind of results can someone expect from the Mayo Clinic diet? The program is designed to help individuals lose that initial 6 to 10 pounds during the first 2-week lose-it phase.
That initial boost.
Following that, the live-it phase aims for a more steady and sustainable weight loss of about 1 to 2 pounds per week until the individual reaches their goal weight. And by consistently applying the lifelong healthy habits learned throughout the program, the ultimate goal is to maintain that weight permanently.
That gradual and sustainable approach to weight loss 1 to 2 pounds a week is generally considered much more effective for long-term weight maintenance and overall well-being compared to rapid restrictive diets that often lead to that yo-yo effect we talked about.
Right. They also highlight the significant potential for reducing various weight-related health risks like type 2 diabetes and heart disease.
Big benefits beyond just the scale.
Definitely. And is it generally safe? For most healthy adults, yes, the Mayo Clinic diet is considered safe. Because it emphasizes such a high intake of vegetables and fruit, most people will actually benefit from the increased vitamins, minerals, and fiber. They do note that if someone isn't used to eating a lot of fiber, they might experience some temporary digestive changes as their body adjusts. Bit of bloating, maybe, initially.
Yeah, that's common when increasing fiber. Usually settles down.
Also, while fruit contains natural sugars, the overall impact on carbohydrate intake and blood sugar or blood fats is generally lessened as weight loss occurs. However, they do advise anyone with pre-existing health conditions like diabetes to work closely with their doctor to tailor the diet to their specific needs.
Always good advice.
Suggesting, for example, that individuals with diabetes might need to prioritize non-starchy vegetables over higher sugar fruits.
It's always a good idea to consult with your healthcare provider before making any significant changes to your diet, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. Get personalized guidance.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, it's really clear that achieving and maintaining a healthy weight isn't just about one magic bullet. It's a truly interconnected system involving healthy eating with a focus on nutrient balance, mindful portion control, and consistent meal timing.
Right.
Alongside the crucial aspect of maintaining hormonal balance, which is so heavily influenced by factors like our sleep habits, our stress levels, and our intake of sugar.
Those lifestyle factors.
And really underpinning all of this is the importance of making sustainable lifestyle changes that we can stick with. All three of our sources really emphasize the value of building those long-term, enjoyable habits rather than relying on restrictive short-term diets that are often difficult to maintain.
The key takeaway is to look at these different elements not as separate entities, but as interconnected parts of a larger holistic approach to our overall well-being. It all fits together.
Absolutely. So for you listening right now, take a moment to really think about your own eating patterns. What might be triggering those times when you eat for reasons other than hunger? And your current lifestyle habits in light of everything we've discussed.
Yeah, a little self-reflection.
Maybe identify 1 or 2 actionable strategies from this deep dive that really resonate with you, and consider how you could realistically begin to incorporate them into your daily routine.
Even making small, consistent changes can lead to significant and lasting improvements over time. Don't try to overhaul everything at once.
Great point. And here's a final thought for you to really chew on. Considering the strong emphasis on habit change across all of these sources, what's one small, enjoyable change that you could realistically implement starting today to begin building a healthier relationship with food?
That's a really powerful question to reflect on. Small, enjoyable, and realistic.
Remember, building a healthier lifestyle is a journey, not a race. It's about learning. It's about being kind and compassionate with yourself. And it's ultimately about finding what works best for you in the long run.
Well said.
Thanks so much for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time.